If there's one thing Dragon Quest VII is known for, it's the slow pace. It's a massive game, and even just getting to the first battle in the original PlayStation version was said to take almost 4 hours. But with the reimagined version coming, I wanted to see for myself how long it really took to get the proper quest started. And so, a month ago, I played the openings of both the PS1 and 3DS versions of Dragon Quest VII, where I discovered that I actually preferred the sense of adventure created by the original. The 3DS certainly picked up the pace, but I found a lot of its changes took away from the overall experience. Now, the demo for Dragon Quest VII Reimagined has arrived, and I can finally see how this version decided to tackle the infamous opening. But before I get into it, I really do recommend watching that original video first, as I'll be referring back to the events of those games without restating exactly what happened. You can find a link to it in the description below. With all that said, how exactly does the third version of Dragon Quest VII approach the material? Well, it must be said immediately that the game is absolutely gorgeous. I wasn't sure about using a diorama art style to capture Akira Toriyama's original designs, but in practice, it's a look that captures the feeling of the old school RPGs. It helps pull the camera out compared to the 3DS version, while giving impressive visual fidelity to a PlayStation game that most would consider basic, if not dated. And it's thematically relevant too, as the opening movie emphasizes the stone slabs that are key to Dragon Quest VII's adventure. I've still only played the opening hours of each game, but even I was struck by a kind of nostalgia watching it all play out. After playing the demo itself, I would describe the game as an intelligent mix of the original and 3DS versions while updating certain aspects for a modern audience. The story, as is the case in all versions, is exactly the same up until the moment the hero talks with the King of Estard about his son Kiefer's wild tendencies. The big harvest, finding your childhood friend Maribel trying to stow away on the ship, her making you take her to Estard when summoned, the sterling reputation of your father and the infamous exploits of your uncle all remain. The design of the towns themselves follow the 3DS version though. The castle town is laid out in exactly the same manner as is your hometown of Pilchard Bay. But again, pulling back the camera helps make everything feel so much less claustrophobic. These places have room to breathe. Meanwhile, the overworld is designed after the PS1 version. There's no gate blocking you from the northern part of the island, there's no behind the back view, but there are items to find in the overworld like in that second iteration. Reimagined isn't just a carbon copy though. One of the first things I discovered about the overworld was how the house of the man who hung out with animals is now gone. The developers had said things would be cut for the sake of pacing, and it seems this man, whose purpose I still don't know, is one such cut. There are new scenes too though. Your uncle, called Pike in this version, is given more of a chance to show his personality, actually showing up at the inn to discuss his late rent and comment on how his sizzling stone has gone missing. The people of the castle town still gossip about him and say how much of a pain he can be, but I did notice an attempt to soften him somewhat, as one villager comments how he's still weirdly lovable despite all his faults. I'm not sure if that's the best characterization, but then again, I still don't know his full purpose to the story. Continuing on, there are a few other aspects that hew closer to the 3DS version, namely the amount of items and money that can be found around town. It's just enough for the hero and Kiefer to kit themselves out for the future adventure, but it also doesn't toss loads of chimera wings at you. Rushing from one location to the next is not the end-all solution this time around. The opening feels better paced, and rather than clutter items, the hero immediately has access to zoom, with it also costing only 0 MP. So the option is still there, but it no longer feels like an in-your-face apology. Before even meeting the king, there are other changes that are well worth pointing out, one of which is something that I hope continues in Dragon Quest for the foreseeable future, the party chat indicator. For a long time, Dragon Quest has allowed the player to check in on their party to have them comment on the latest happenings or indicate the next place to go. It's often the best way to get characterization for the party in the older games. But I personally always forget about it. I get so focused on the next destination that I just don't check in. It's not as much of a problem in newer games, but you feel the loss in the older titles. Reimagined has changed it so that rather than checking in when you think there might be new dialogue, a character portrait will appear in the top right, telling the player that the party member has something new to say. It's rarely anything insightful and often points to an already obvious destination or solution, but I appreciate that the party will now feel like a real group of friends. And besides, it can easily be ignored without issue. The castle itself still contains a shop with armor and items to purchase, and it still maintains that there are bears in the eastern mountains to justify their existence on such a peaceful island. However, across from the shop is now a mini metal exchange rather than a bank to store money and prevent it from being halved upon death. I don't know if this indicates a less harsh punishment for death, but I like that the mini medals are here, as they always provide an excellent excuse to explore even more with rewards that are often more than worthwhile. It's another way the game feels exceptionally modernized. The last thing I'll mention before going beyond the king's plea to the future hero to help rein in his son is the conversation with Kiefer's sister, the princess. I had bemoaned before that the localization had decided to give her a lisp, which, for me, made her a deeply unserious character, despite her agreeing with Kiefer's efforts. That has remained for this version, and while I am disappointed, I am keeping in mind a comment from the previous video that pointed out that lisps are often used to make a young character seem cuter. The design doesn't seem especially young to me, but it's still a minor quibble in the grand scheme of things. But let's get to the real meat of the changes because, again, up to this point, the story has mostly remained the same down to the NPCs having the exact same dialogue as before. However, upon entering the Eastern Ruins and meeting Kiefer, Reimagined finally shows its hand in how it will streamline this opening. And I find it to be incredibly smart while remaining mostly true to the spirit of the original. Kiefer tries his mother's ring like before, but rather than have the player run back and forth between the castle and ruins attempting different trinkets, he immediately pulls out the sizzling stone from your uncle and tries that. It naturally doesn't work either, and I thought that's when the usual runaround would begin. Instead, Kiefer tries a piece of the plate, which he had showed off when the hero arrived in the castle. And while that doesn't do anything at first, eventually a voice speaks to them through the statue, saying they must prove themselves to gain entry. This completely new scenario then does something brilliant. It combines the search for the other plate pieces with the process of opening the door. Instead of praying and seeing if they're already worthy, it's tied to a quest while getting rid of fluff. Remember that the first two games had the player find most of the plate pieces in the ruin itself, just laying around without any pomp or circumstance. The way deeper into the ruins was blocked by 4 pieces of armor that would then be placed on 4 different statues. On PS1, that meant solving puzzles in the ruins themselves. On 3DS, it was accessing the land beyond the North Gate and repeating a dull process of receiving the armor. In Reimagined, the armor is gone, and it instead becomes a hunt for the pieces themselves. And rather than cut the important scenes in the lead up to accessing the ruins, they're integrated into this quest. Visiting the hermit reveals new dialogue that shows he too tried to open the door, but was found unworthy. It both gives importance to him locking away the piece he did find, and explains why he can't stand the ignorance of the rest of the island. There's even a new shadow puzzle that's reminiscent of the PlayStation Ruin puzzles. And this delighted me to no end because it showed the developers understood the need for adventure. It was also a way for them to have a battle much sooner than any other version before it. Like my other 2 playthroughs, I spoke to everyone and treated it as if I was playing for the first time, not rushing in the slightest. And thanks to the Hermit's portion of the slab hunt, I got into my first fight against brand new enemies a little less than an hour and 20 minutes into my playthrough. It's not a difficult battle or anything, but it did reveal something new. The job system is going to start much sooner than the other games. It's not explained or anything, I merely got experience toward the default jobs of the hero and Kiefer, but it was there and left me incredibly curious. The second piece actually involved my uncle, as he claimed to know where one was, but would only reveal it if 3 bottles were collected and taken to him at the new Northern Rainbow Cove. After gathering some water that he would claim to be holy, the hero's uncle revealed a small alcove where a simple block pushing puzzle had to be solved. On the other side was the next piece, but also a scene where he showed just how dodgy he could be, as he wanted to evaluate the piece that he had deemed worthless before. Instead, he found his missing sizzling stone, which completely distracted him and sent him on his way. This only left a piece found by the hero's father after his fishing trip, which unfolded just as before. With this, the 2 boys return to the statue in the ruins, where it has since become dark over the course of the day, give over the other 4 pieces, and successfully open the door. Just as they're about to enter, Maribel appears and forces her way into the party as recompense for being left out of all their fun adventuring. While this revised scenario has cut down on the childlike adventure that felt so prevalent in the PS1 original, it didn't abandon it completely like the 3DS version. It felt like a happy medium where things were just challenging enough without wasting the player's time, especially those who don't appreciate the constant back and forth to the castle. It's a fantastic union of the two previous ideas while still maintaining the core story beats that needed to be hit. And it's not like the 3DS version was completely shunted either, as the purple creature known as the Curator is still overlooking the various pedestals for the slab pieces. It's another new room design though, keeping all the pedestals together, but not needing to speak to the Curator in order to place them. From there, the completed puzzle warps the trio to an unknown island, where they have their first battle against some slimes, meet a mysterious warrior, and reach a small village that has had all the women stolen away by monsters. The proper adventure can begin, and it only took a little over 90 minutes, faster even than the 3DS version. There's one last difference I want to point out though, and it concerns the job systems, as the battle with the slimes also fills the party's first job level. I had never even come close to seeing this system in the other versions, so I don't know how accurate it is, but to at least have some semblance of it early on likely gives a little extra flair to battles that might have felt basic otherwise. With that single job level, each character gets a new skill that will make battles that much easier. I don't think I can sing the praises of this opening enough. While it still doesn't capture the sense of adventure I had from the PS1 version, it at least maintained a semblance of it. Reimagined smartly pulls from both versions while introducing its own ideas that all help establish a far better pace. The new voice acting also helps endear me to these new characters, even more so than I already was. The only real problem I had is that the game is a bit too liberal with its story markers, making figuring out the next step way too easy. I barely had to think, and as far as I could tell, there was no option to turn those markers off. This minor issue is barely worth complaining about though. I've played the opening to Dragon Quest VII 3 different times and in 3 different ways, and after all this time, I think I love this game. Obviously there is so much more to see, but I can sense the basics. I know what it's trying to do, and I cannot wait to finally try it myself, whatever version that may be. For new players though, Reimagined seems to be the clear best choice to start with. You can even discover that for yourself thanks to this demo. I think it's well worth checking out for what seems to be a highly underrated Dragon Quest. How do you feel about this new opening though? Have you tried the demo for yourself? Do you plan on picking up Reimagined? Let us know in the comments, and thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please consider subscribing to GVG, hitting the like button, and ringing that bell. We also have a Patreon at patreon.com/gvgaming with plenty of extra perks. Until next time, bye!